Hello, hello, class. Okay, we're going to be talking about mixed methods today. How exciting. Let me pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, mixed methods. Mixed methods research. This is really, well, it's not a method, it's a combination of methods. Uh, throughout class, we've been studying quantitative methods and qualitative methods. Well, usually, especially when you get to the doctoral level, you usually specialize in one or the other. More and more now, people are specializing in both now. And so this is really mixed methods researchers really understand and get a lot of training in qualitative and quantitative and are able to use both. Sometimes they have a strength more in one and the other. So it's pretty rare to find people who are versed and trained in both and use both at a very high level. But we're going to talk about it as connoisseurs of research, you'll probably run into a lot of research, or maybe not a lot, but some research that uses mixed methods. So, okay, an introduction to mixed methods. Mixed methods, it can't be really something that you decide to do midway through the study. You usually have to plan for it from the very, very beginning. You usually have to have some knowledge or some strength in those methods or some desire to really use both of those or understand why both of those or how both of those could be meaningful to your study. And so it's useful for quantitative research, useful in that it adds meaning to and voice to the numbers. And it's useful in qualitative research in that it helps with really triangulation. So both can complement each other in different ways. Okay. All right. So this is really both quantitative versus qualitative. So the first column, quantitative, is really that's more like deductive observation. You start with general observation, such as a hypothesis, and then from there, I mean, obviously you design the study, but ultimately you move to a conclusion. You're concerned with objectivity, probability, probability, probability. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let me correct that. You're concerned with objectivity and probability. Okay, you're focused on establishing cause-effect relationships, how one thing can cause another. You start with a hypothesis and you test, and you move to testing that hypothesis. And in previous sessions, as you noticed, we discussed what type of hypotheses, a different type of hypotheses that you could formulate, and you would need to formulate for one if you were doing mixed methods or quantitative research, not qualitative research. For qualitative research, you need a research question, which we'll talk about in a second. You're also focused on random selection and assignment of participants for high quality quantitative research. Random is really what makes a study high quality a lot of the times. It makes it experimental. And that's really what you're looking for. On the qualitative side, this is really more inductive research. You start with a number of facts and you move towards categorization, explanation of those facts and how they may fit together. You're concerned with explanation and interpretation. You're focused on describing and understanding relationships. And you may start with a hypothesis if you're doing the quantitative side, but you may also start with a guiding research question on the qualitative side. You're focused on selecting participants that may offer rich data. So that's purposeful sampling. Okay, so a lot of times in mixed methods, you're going to have both a research question and a hypothesis a lot of times. Novice researchers usually pick one method and then they move to design a study. Experienced researchers particularly with training in both qualitative and quantitative, may pick problems to study first, and then they move to the selection of methods, particularly, knowing that they want to design a study that uses both methods, that utilizes both of their specialization to be able to achieve ultimately data triangulation in their study by having expertise in both. Okay. All right. The definition of the purpose mixed methods is really a combination of both quan, which is short for quantitative, and qual, which is short for qualitative, in one single study. You combine methods to be able to understand the phenomenon more completely than one method can alone. A lot of times, researchers, they either think more in numbers or in words, right? And so rarely do the two mix. Rarely are they interested in each other's research sometime, and really they're really focused more on sort of their camp and people who are able to understand the world from their perspective as they develop their perspective and write for the world. The requisite is that researchers know both methods thoroughly, Few researchers have this type of training, but mixed method studies and educational research usually involves multiple researchers. Rarely are you working alone when you're using mixed methods, because a lot of times in graduate education, it takes so long to learn one method, very good, that rarely do you get training in both methods. Mixed methods can also occur in stages. If you start with the qualitative research, you can use your findings to construct and inform the quantitative part of the study. And if you start with the quantitative research, you can use your findings to construct and inform the qualitative part of your study. Okay, quantitative and qualitative. Sorry about that. Qualitative versus quantitative. Okay, let me do quantitative versus qualitative. Positivism versus relativism. Okay, students, it's important to understand that researchers, either the philosophical and epistemological groundings of people usually are going to determine if you want to train in quantitative or qualitative research. Okay, and they both have different purposes. They're both useful in different ways, but they're both concerned with solving education problems, world problems, social science problems. They just approach it in a different way. The real problem, which most researchers don't understand, don't necessarily lie in the methods as much as it does in the theories of knowledge. Okay, so in one camp, positivists. These are called positivists. It's called the positivism movement or positivism philosophy. There's many different ways to describe it. You can ask AI, what is positivism in the world of research? Right? These are the people that believe in the truth. That truth can only be attained through precise measurement and observation. Okay. So, for example, like drinking a beer, you could say, well, you say things like most people when they drink 5 beers, they get drunk. Well, you could say that from experience, right? You hang out at the bars a lot, but from a positivist perspective, you got to measure that. You got to measure, do surveys on how many, you have to define what drunk means. How much of a beer? What do you mean by a beer? Is that 12 ounces? Is it 10 ounces? And then I actually measure to get a very precise measurement of how many beers it takes based on weight, gender, all kinds of different things that it takes to achieve drunkenness, if that's what you want to do, right? That would be a positivistic sort of perspective on how you might approach addressing or answering that question. The other camp is more like a postmodern relativist camp. They believe that truth is relative to the social and cultural setting. Anything can be truth. Truth depends on who says the truth is, right? Truth is socially constructed phenomenon, right? So if you say, "Oh well, I don't like to, drink any beer because it's going to get me drunk," then that's your truth. I have no reason to question it. Whether even if science says no, 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 based on your weight and gender, you need 2 beers to get drunk. According to you, it only takes one sip, right? And the truth comes from you. This is what you say the truth is, and this is what the truth is because the truth comes from your perspective. Okay, so that's sort of. I'm sorry I used like a beer example. I'm sorry I haven't been drinking or anything. I'm not really a drinker, really, to be honest with you. It's the only thing that came to mind. Okay, all right. Okay, you have 3 designs we're going to go over. The first one is the qual-quant model. Okay, and notice the word qual is first. It's in bold, right? This design is really used more as a exploratory model, right? You collect the qualitative data first, and you put more, and then you put more weight on it. It carries more weight than the quantitative research. The principal investigator, which is really the person guiding or directing the study, is usually trained in qualitative research. So the process is you collect qualitative data, you analyze the qualitative data, you generate concepts or maybe even a hypotheses, you identify important variables for the study based on the qualitative data, and then you use that to really use it to you use your quantitative data to enhance the presentation of your qualitative data. So quantitative is really there just to help enhance, beautify, the qualitative data. Really, the qualitative data is king, really, in this model. Okay. The second model is the qual model. This is also used for It's also used for exploratory designs. The PI, which is the principal investigator, usually has training in quantitative research. So first, you formulate a hypothesis. You collect quantitative data. Generally maybe through a survey. You conduct quantitative data analysis, and you use the findings from the quantitative data analysis to design, investigate, and formulate the quantitative study. You use your qualitative data to enhance the presentation and analysis of your quantity. You use your quantitative data, to enhance the presentation analysis of your, I don't know that was correct. You use the qualitative to enhance presentation analysis. If I just put it backwards, I apologize. I don't want to confuse you. The qualitative is only going to use to enhance the quantitative. Remember, the quantitative is king in this model. Then you have the qual model. Even though the quant is first, you notice they're both capitalized. They're both bold. This really is both carry similar amount of weight. And while triangulation is important in this design, you got to be careful in the usage of this term, because in qualitative, the term is not really important or necessary or a purpose of qualitative research. So it's important to not be throwing around triangulation in this model. The PI usually has training in both quantitative and qualitative, or you have two primary investigators, one that really specializes in quantitative and one that specializes in qualitative. And they share the same level of responsibility in the execution of the study. So we used to have a researcher here. He since left to the University of Louisville, but he was trained out of Purdue, quantitative researcher. So we actually did a lot of studies together, because my strength early on in my career was the qualitative. His was the quantitative, and we were able to mirror both of our specializations to conduct a lot of mixed method studies, actually, and design them as well. The process is you formulate a hypothesis and a research question. You collect both quantitative and qualitative data simultaneously. You conduct quantitative and qualitative data analysis simultaneously. And you use your findings from both to really design, formulate, interpret the essence of the phenomenon under investigation. None carries more weight than the other. None is more important. This is a true sort of equal to design, the most equal of all three. Okay. For data analysis, which is really the most difficult aspect of any research endeavor, some things to look for in the data are, you got to look for relationships in the data, particularly when you're using both qualitative and quantitative, to see if there's any discrepancies. Are they telling different stories? You have to have deep understanding, and how deep understanding with one also is in unison with the deep understanding in the other method. Are there any new understandings that come from both or one or the other? Is there continued understanding? How do you continue to learn and expand the knowledge that you've gained from that type of study? There's verification of old understanding, confirmation and disconfirmation of new and old understandings. And there's also a proof of non-existing phenomenon that may come about in designing and implementing studies. Okay, for consumers of educational research, the authors usually say that mixed methods are used in the abstract or in the method section. So if you're looking for a mixed method study, that's where you'll find it. That's when you know that study is a mixed method study. In the abstract, they say, this is a mixed method study, or generally there's a section called methods. If you find it in that section, that's truly going to be more likely than not a mixed method study. If not, look for mixed methods or a combination of qualitative, quantitative, and the purpose statement or the research questions. Okay, things to look for in evaluating mixed method studies: a rationale for how they were used, what design was used. Is quantitative or qualitative more superior, or does it carry more weight, or are they equal? Whether both were used sufficiently, satisfactorily, and are both techniques identified, and are both techniques given the same amount of coverage and utility in the study, and are both types of data displayed. Do you have numbers data and direct quotes? Do you have both of those? If you have both of those, then I think that would be a very good example of a good high quality mixed method study. Thank you very much. I look forward to your discussion, and I look forward to seeing you next week.